some of the use cases, or maybe a classic case or two that where remote viewing has been used to find something that's been verified in the real world, if you will?
Yeah, there are numerous cases that you can find out there that the military psychic spies have done, where, they were looking at their adversaries, sent to look at different adversaries, and this information was used by their superiors, sent up the chain of command so that different kinds of things could happen. But there's all kinds of really interesting remote viewing out there that's been useful in the real world. I myself have worked with a team way in the past with transdimensional systems, and right now, my team is working on a case where we look for missing people, or we look for perpetrators. There's a number of remote viewers that have done this kind of work and posted their results online. There's all kinds of future predictions too that have been, come true, that remote viewers have talked about. Back in the day, back in the late 90s, I had done a session on the next terror attack on the United States, and I drew the Twin Towers and Statue of Liberty and two airplanes flying into the Twin Towers, and that was 3 years before 9/11.
Mm.
And that was posted on the internet and got a lot of attention at the time. But even just the drone thing happening, for example, the Future Forecasting Group, which is a collective of remote viewers out there, they talked about something happening in the sky with a militaristic presence and maybe some non-human intelligence. They predicted that before all of this started. The Farsight Institute, still going since I was vice president many years ago. They're still going strong. And they also talked about there was going to be a big non-human intelligence presence in the skies happening in November. So there's so much out there, so many talented remote viewers doing absolutely incredible things. And I'm just excited to be part of it.
Is it fair to say that if you have multiple remote viewers looking at the same thing, the same event, that you can get a more higher resolution idea of what's going on there if you overlay that with maybe other sources of information, like an intelligence agency might do?
Absolutely. Having multiple remote viewers is always better for figuring out the real answer to something. I like working in a group the best. And I've been developing a group since I came back on the scene, and we're doing some cool work. But when you remote view something, you're always remote viewing it through your own personal perceptions and lens. Your background, your religious upbringing, how you were raised by your parents, your cultural conditioning, your education level, what you believe about the world. And it's always going to have that kind of a flavor to it. What you produce will have your flavor mixed in with it. And so it's good to have a number of remote viewers so that you can look at things more objectively. Also, some remote viewers are more visual. They're going to sketch more, and their sketches will look so much like what's there at the target. And some are more conceptual, and they'll just know what's happening, but they may not have a lot of sketches. And some are more emotional, and they connect with the emotional feelings of the people there, or animals, or aliens, or the place itself. And you put all of that together, and then you can build a full picture.
I think it's so fascinating that this is not only something that was well funded and studied intensely by the military and the intelligence agency of the United States, but also the Soviet Union, and that produced this whole training methodology that seems to have like real provable, tangible results in the real world. Do you believe it? We sometimes hear that, they discontinued all that research. They're not doing it anymore. They gave up on it because it doesn't work. At least if you look on Wikipedia, that's what it says. Do you think that's true?
No, of course not. Of course not. When they declassified Stargate, they said, yes, it worked to some degree, but not well enough to keep funding it. So they did admit success, but then they said they were just shutting it all down. Now you have to take into account all of their military psychic spies, military remote viewers had just reached retirement age, or were reaching retirement age. So they're about to be let loose upon the public. And, of course, they're still researching this. Of course they are. And there's multiple groups of remote viewers and different, arms of government or government adjacent type groups, black ops groups, defense contractors, you name it. I've remote viewed a bunch of them to find out what they're doing and how they're using, new science and new technology, because they have all the money behind them to figure out way more than what we can do as individuals at home. So yeah,
It's so amazing. It's just fascinating, the whole history of it, and the fact that it was Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff back at Stanford Research Institute that was began the most intense military research on this. I'm sure we have a lot of fans of Ingo Swann. I'm a fan of Ingo's work, and so it's always been something in the back of my mind. And I know Xander's a fan of remote viewing, and a number of people in our audience. So it just seemed like a natural thing to ask some remote viewers or find someone who could look at the situation that's unfolding right now and try to shed some light on it. And it was when we were wondering about all that I came across your video that you did, where you did this whole session on the New Jersey drone situation. And I've watched it, and it's just, if you don't know what you're looking at, it can be very difficult to understand what the bigger picture is that you're describing there. We wanted to make this episode of Night Shift Live about figuring out the drone mystery, and particularly the drones that are not only in the United States, but the stuff that's going on in the UK. We have another guest that's going to be with us. He's actually in the green room right now, LibertyWingUK.
Oh, wow.
Liberty, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks for joining us, friend.
Well. Half my head's missing off the computer, but
at least half of it's still there. That's what matters. Yeah. It's the important half. Liberty runs a YouTube channel and live streams footage from above Lakenheath Air Force Base in the UK, and he's been getting this amazing footage of drone activity above the base. And he's been on the show before, and we've been trying to figure out what it is that we're actually looking at. And we've put it to our audience. We've put it to members of our community who have military background and intelligence background. And we've tried to see if we can figure out what we are actually looking at when we look at all this stuff. So I wanted to have you guys here today to see if we could peek behind the curtain a little bit. And I'd like to start with Birdie on your session, and then we'll go to Liberty. When you did this session, can you explain what were you trying to figure out, and how did this feel to you in the moment when you were going through it?
Yeah, so most remote viewing sessions are done blind, meaning you don't know what you're looking at, and it's revealed to you later at the end, or at some future date if it's an operational project. And in this case, someone gave me this to remote view. They told me they had a target, and they felt that there was some urgency involved. And I was honestly thinking at the time, oh, must be a missing person if there's urgency involved. So I kind of went in with that mindset. I'm going to be looking for a missing person. I've done so many of these kinds of cases. And so they just gave me a set of random numbers, which if I remember correctly, was 43170712. And so I began my remote viewing session with this, but I immediately got a structure and realized that something was floating, and started, exploring this through making some sketches. I in the system that I use, which is my own system that I've developed over the past 22 years, you use a huge piece of paper and you call it a map. And you use crayons and markers and colored pencils, because colors can tell you a lot about what's happening. And so I started by drawing first what looked like fan blades. And then I drew two colored circles, a green one and a red one. And I started exploring what these things might be. And the fan blades, after figuring out, well, it's attached to something, it's in the air, it's heavy, it's metallic. And I realized, oh, we're looking at a helicopter here. This is a helicopter. And then I started looking at the two circular things, and I got the strong sensation that what I was looking at was actually non-human intelligence. Now, as a remote viewer of almost 30 years, I have remote viewed all kinds of alien stuff, the crash at Roswell, all kinds of classic cases and little known cases and just all kinds of stuff. So this felt non-human to me. I have a lot of experience with that. But it didn't feel familiar. Like, if you're looking at the gray aliens or the reptilians or what have you, those have a certain flavor. And this didn't have that flavor. It was really unusual, almost like an artificial intelligence, but it had a sentience to it. And I kept trying to draw something behind it. I wanted to draw that it had a shape, but I couldn't quite draw the shape because it didn't feel real to me. And I realized that what was happening here was whatever this was mimicking something else. And so I left that alone for a little bit and explored the helicopters some more, and then drew an unmanned craft that I figured out was like a legitimate drone, like a real drone. It was military or military adjacent drone. And so there were a number of these actual drones in the sky, a number of these helicopters in the sky, but there were more than the combined drones and helicopters, more of these other things in the sky. And I started drawing them all over my map. And then I drew a coastline and people in a city skyline, which was probably along the Hudson, in retrospect. But at the time, I'm just trying to figure it out. And then I realized, oh, I'm looking at those darn drones. That's what I'm looking at. And I really started diving in to the non-human intelligence aspect. And it had like this tiny, tiny center to it, this center of sentience that felt very artificial intelligence like to me, but not artificial intelligence as we understand it today. Now, who knows what's going on in secret labs, in corporations and in the government. I'm actually studying artificial intelligence, of a high level of understanding of what's been publicly released or what's in development in certain institutions. But of course, the government could have something highly secret. But this just felt so far beyond what we could possibly create, because it truly was like a general artificial intelligence, truly had sentience, could express things and knew things, and was able to collect and assimilate data. And these things were going in and out of the water. They're going into the water, coming out of the water, and replicating in some way. So that's what I got in the first part. I did the session in 3 parts over 3 days, which is typical for me. I usually spend a few days on each session. And it wasn't until I was completely all done with part 3 that it was revealed to me what it was.
So it's interesting that you mention artificial intelligence, because I think in this community too, when we say non-human intelligence, it's the reflex is to think alien, right?
Right.
And sometimes, it's interesting to watch how fast artificial intelligence has advanced just in the last 3 years. Yes. And things that were impossible to imagine just 5 years ago are now like commonplace. If you can get to a cell phone, you can access this stuff. Do you get a sense, just a larger sense in general, that what is going on right now vis-a-vis this whole moment that we're having with aliens and non-human intelligence, is that somehow related to what's going on in the artificial intelligence world?
I think that there might be some connection, to be honest. Whatever this intelligence was, it seemed extraordinarily concerned with whatever's happening on this planet at this moment in time. I know that, the military activity in the air, they were doing something, but they were also kind of focused on whatever these non-human intelligence creations were. And I think that it's possible that, we're at this crossroads in time right now. Humanity really is. We're facing potential nuclear annihilation there, with Russia posturing, the Russia-Ukraine war going on, and NATO, the United States involvement. There's been a lot of movement of nuclear weapons. There's been a lot of, talk about what potentially might happen. I think the government's extremely concerned about some kind of nuclear exchange. So I think that that's one part of this crossroads. The other certainly is artificial intelligence, because we're at a point now in time where we're starting to give up a lot of our humanity for technology. If you just look, go out into the world, take a walk. And if there's anyone even going for a walk outside, they're probably looking at their phone. You go anywhere you go out to eat, people are on their phones. They're giving up this community, this interpersonal relationship, all of this for spending more time with technology, taking in more technology. Transhumanism is growing larger, that whole area of interest. And so I think we're at this precipice where we have to make decisions about who we want to be as a people on this planet. Who are we? Who do we want to grow into? And there might be concern, I think, by some of these non-human intelligences of different kinds, as I think many kinds have been visiting our planet, or perhaps exist on this planet simultaneously with us. And so I think that, we're at this precipice where we have to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to go down this pathway and give up the rest of humanity towards technology, kind of like WALL-E, the movie, the Pixar movie, or are we going to learn to harness it and use it to solve a lot of our deepest issues, like hunger and housing and medical help and things like this? Right now, I think a lot of these things are being weaponized and used in ways that are fill people's pockets, the 1%, and that also used for dastardly deeds in terms of weaponization and control. But we do have an opportunity to harness this for good. But so I think they are interested in this.
With that, you mentioned nuclear weapons, and I think that's always a good opportunity to bring in Liberty, who has been covering this event from the UK as it's unfolded for a while now, and kind of recently became the center of some controversy because his YouTube channel was taken down for a period of time. So, Liberty, you've been watching this unfold for a while now. What have you seen since the last time that you were on? How has this situation evolved, and are we seeing more weirder activity? And what can you tell us? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, it's been relatively quiet in the UK. We've not seen anything like what you guys have got, whether that's a good thing here or a bad thing. But I've been over there loads of times. I have seen lights. I've seen, and sorry, I'll keep looking up and my camera's in a bit of a weird place. But yeah, I've been over there. I went last night. I saw a couple of lights over there. Monday night, I think it was. I saw a couple of lights. Nothing like what we saw before. But that first time when I was streaming, there was lights absolutely everywhere, and you could hear what they were doing. They were flying around after these things. They were evading them, and obviously late that night, my YouTube channel got taken down, which actually is really strange because someone downloaded my video from that night, and he met me at Lakenheath last night, and his channel got took down because he posted my video.
Wow.
So I found that out last night that he'd re-uploaded my video, and his channel got taken down. So that's a bit of a weird one.
That is weird.
Yeah. So he asked YouTube to put his back up. He got his channel back, but not the video. So yeah. So I learned that last night. I hadn't had time to tell you, but yeah, last night I was there until quite late. I was with another channel doing a video, and he spent the evening with me. And we did see a few lights. He's going to send me some footage that he took, and he had a lot better camera to see in the dark with, and he could make out lights in the distance. So yeah, hopefully we're going to have some more footage for you, and we'll share it with you.
So that video that got taken down on both your channels, what was in that video you think that made people take it down?
Do I dare tell you on your channel? Do I dare have your channel go down? Because
could you describe it in general terms?
Just what the planes were talking about.
Gotcha.
So there were some choice words that I probably daren't say right now. I can tell you off air, obviously. Yeah, when I didn't actually know at the time. Someone told me about what was being said. I wasn't, because my radio was off, My stream caught someone else's radio, and I went down and got my radio and put my earphones in. I started listening to what they were saying, and I couldn't believe what they were saying. But previously to that, that had actually caught someone's radio, and what they were saying was probably, it was probably they didn't want no one to hear it. So that's where
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I didn't know that night, and I didn't know the last time I spoke to you half the stuff, but yeah, listening back now, I've still got that stream. I'm not going to put it up.
Wow, I don't blame you. That's breaking news then.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was,
You heard it here first, folks.
And I heard some other information about the light in the sky. I heard a big bang that night. I don't know what it was. I didn't see it. But someone said, this may be completely separate thing, but someone said one was shot down in the local village. Apparently she's gone very quiet, and no one's heard from her since. So
I remember watching one of your videos and hearing that. And somebody off camera was like, "Did you hear that?" And I think you responded, "Is that the one you're talking about?"
Yeah.
It was just you could hear it on the video. It's faint and it's off to the side almost, but you can definitely make out there's a sound and somebody reacts to it. Yeah. That's so strange. I mean, I think that's real quick before we go on to the next question here. Everybody watching, if you could, please, if you like what you're seeing and you like what you're hearing, hit that thumbs up, like the stream, boost the stream. YouTube really likes it when you guys like the stream, so please do, and that'll get more eyeballs on it, and it'll boost it up in the algorithm, and that really, really helps. We've got about 530 live viewers right now. Let's see if we can double that. I think we can do that. Come on, guys, we could do that. All right. So the big debate, I think, within at least our audience here for the last few days has been, is what we're seeing around the world all related? Is it all the same thing? I guess one part of this debate is that. Or are these separate events that are just happening at the same time? And are they, is it non-human intelligence doing something and we are responding to that? Or is this something else? This is just maybe our own government doing some kind of test or doing some kind of war game or something like that. And it just appears very strange to us because what we're seeing in the sky may be new weaponry or new technology that we haven't seen before. And so I've noticed in the chat and in our messages on the last couple of videos, that's been kind of where people's minds are at. Liberty, what is your take on what you've seen, what you've heard, just your vibe? Like, what are you picking up from the people that you're around? If you just had to, like, give me the temperature of the room, like, what do you think is going on?
It's 50-50. To be honest with you, I had a guy turn up last night. He's been messaging me a lot. He may be watching. He's been messaging me. He's asking me lots of information, and he's the guy that had his channel taken down. He's got videos and information from everywhere. And he was telling me all sorts last night, and he truly believes it's they're proper UAPs. He was saying to me, I've not seen nothing close enough to see what they were. I can see lights in the sky. Nothing like what you guys have got. You guys have got really close-up stuff. I've not been able to get that. I've been able to get distant lights, and I've been able to hear what they're saying, and they're definitely responding to them in a way that they didn't know what they were, unless it's a big cover-up, and they know exactly what it is. But I don't know. I really can't.
You feel comfortable saying that, like, the attitude is they're nervous about it.
Yeah,
is that fair?
I think so. I definitely the consensus was the first night we saw everything happen, and for a couple of nights after, it appeared that they were nervous about what was in the sky.
Certainly, if they took down one of your channel and somebody else's video, they must have been concerned a little bit.
Yeah. But whether they've done that because we're filming something sensitive and they don't want us to see it, and they didn't realise we were streaming. But then again, a couple of nights later, I was streaming, and they asked me, well, they said, we'd rather you didn't stream. And I asked them why, and they let me carry on. So it didn't really make any sense. That didn't really make no sense to me. If they didn't want my videos to air, then why say carry on?
None of this makes any sense. It's got everybody so wound up tight. I don't know what to make of it myself. I know that I go back and forth on it. I've gone back and forth on it twice in the last few days. Um, guys, what do you think in the chat? What do you think's going on? Let us know in the chat. Don't be shy. And we have another guest joining us. I'd like to maybe this guy can help us out. This is an expert on mystery from Area 52, Chris Ramsay's house. Chris, welcome to the night shift. It's good to have you back, man. Oh, you're muted. Are you there? Is it the deep state got him?
We may have to come back to him.
All right.
Hey,
Let's go.
Hey,
How's everybody doing?
we're doing great, man. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I've just been sort of really enamored, sort of listening to all of this. So, and I was eating outside, so I didn't want to bug you guys with my mic. Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, and thanks for including me in this conversation. This is fascinating stuff.
You've been watching this like everybody else. What's your take on what's going on? I mean, we're just trying to get to the bottom of it. Have you solved it yet?
Have I solved it? I would love to be the one to solve it. That's for sure. But I think we're all kind of on the same page. I don't know if I can really add anything to the conversation other than, my own personal interpretation from what I've been consuming. And I think most of that leads me to believe that this might be more than one thing. I think that's safe to say. I think a lot of people really agree on that. Anybody else pushing forward one particular specific agenda or dogma, I think we should be weary of that. And I think we should really keep ourselves open to this being more than one thing, and we've heard everything from, dirty bombs to things around nuclear silos or sensitive military areas to even hobbyists perhaps pranking and hoaxing people right now, which I don't think is out of the equation entirely. I think when you have this much attention on anything, I think there are certain bad actors that are going to get into the mix and that are going to want to go viral on TikTok. I don't think that's such a stretch. So, it's as these things are unfolding, couple that with the incredible CGI that exists, the incredible access to this powerful AI that exists, to the attention-seeking people, to the government, to all these different variables, it becomes this melting pot of confusion, and rightfully so. So it's getting trickier by the day to really, put a finger on what exactly is going on. And I think on top of all of that, what's even more unfortunate is that we don't know who to turn to for the truth. And so we're all forced to really speculate. We're all forced to give in our 2 cents. As crazy as some of these, speculation might seem, no one else is giving us a choice right now. So I think, having this discourse and having these conversations is very healthy. I think it helps us digest a lot of the information that's out there, and also helps us maybe, to broaden our horizons on what exactly this might be. And yeah, from my perspective, I think it's a multitude of things, but I'm definitely not ruling out, on some level, NHI. I'm not ruling that out whatsoever. I do think that those things have been known to pop up during, these certain uncertain times, I should say. So yeah, that's kind of where I sit with it.
You make a great point, and it does feel like, we've talked about it on this channel a lot. I don't know, to what extent this is your belief, but certainly internally we've discussed how it does feel like we're kind of on a razor's edge right now. It feels like this moment is very precariously balanced on whatever is going to happen in the next few years. And I know people say that all the time, but it just seems like maybe it's just this generation, having grown up with all the different one emergency after another, you just keep watching them happen, and eventually you're like, if they get any bigger, the planet cracks in half. At some point, we have to figure out how to turn this back and dial it back the other way. And I know that certainly in the UFO community, there is an idea that, and even Danny Sheehan has talked about this recently, that there's going to be some kind of an attempt to intervene and save us from ourselves, or at least hopefully there might be something like that. And that's if we're optimistic. It's also important what you said about the idea that this isn't happening in a bubble. It's not like it's all happening in its own UFO. It's not just UFO stuff happening by itself in isolation. It's like part of this huge information data sphere that's got all these different players in it that are all doing their own different things, that all have different goals and objectives, and they're all trying to manipulate the public opinion. And so it is really hard to right yourself in a space like that and understand like what's up, what's down. That's a really great point. Birdie, as a remote viewer, when you you said this assignment came to you, it was a random assignment, right? You didn't have any data to go on. You just had random numbers, right?
I was just given random numbers.
And
Just
so
numbers.
when you go into this, how do you make sure that you go in clean and you're not bringing any of the clutter of the news and things that you've seen on TV and whatever into that session?
Yeah, once I start a session, I'm generally just so focused on exploring. I want to figure out this mystery. Every session is completely a mystery to me, completely. And, I had been following the drone news before. I did these sessions on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So, the drones had been going on for a couple of weeks at that point, and I was aware of them, but I didn't have a strong opinion. I thought there might be some, non-human intelligence activity, but I also thought maybe this is just a military testing of some new technology. And people, I think, were just starting to talk about potentially, these drones searching for some kind of nuclear material. So, there were a few theories out there. But when I went into the session, I initially thought I was going to be looking for a missing person. But that was quickly erased because I started getting technology immediately. And I was so engrossed in it that I didn't, I didn't even think about the news, even when I realized I was looking at the drones, which is, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour into the session, I realized, this is the drone thing. But I was so interested in it because I had gotten something I would have never, ever in a million years expected. This really strange artificial intelligence, like non-human intelligence, that had sentience, that was communicating. It gave a message to the pilot on a helicopter. There was clear government or government adjacent interaction with these things, trying to figure out what they are, even trying to take them down. That was unsuccessful. And so I was getting all this interesting data that I hadn't thought about before, or that I hadn't seen others talk about before. This idea of a pinpoint, like a elemental almost consciousness that could create these shapes around it, whether it was an orb, whether it was a drone, mimic, or an airplane mimic, helicopter mimic. It was just fascinating to me. And I really was like lost in it. I was just really excited and scared at first, or a little unsettled. Scared isn't the right word. It felt unsettling to me because it was so new. And I knew that it was real. When you remote view something that is completely outside of your frame of reference, it opens your Overton window just a little bit wider.
Do you get the sense, or did you walk away with any idea of what the intent behind this event is, or what different groups are part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I got the sense that whatever these non-human intelligence things are, that this was happening in other places, that it seems to be increasing. They were replicating in some way. They were collecting information and then sending that information like to the whole collective, which would then like be upgraded, so to speak. It's why it felt like artificial intelligence to me. So that we have this going on, but we also have this military activity going on, which seemed to have its own whole thing. They were doing some kind of maneuvers. I don't think that these maneuvers were I didn't get anything about them looking for any nuclear activity. There was just no nuclear anything in the sessions. I don't think that was part of it, but there was some kind of military activity going on with helicopters, drones, unmanned aircraft of some kind. But they also were watching and trying to get, information from whatever these non-human intelligence objects or whatever you want to call them. They were trying to collect information. They were testing anti-drone technology to see if they could take them down. Didn't work. And they were getting, they were sending messages back and forth to, their higher ups. I even, at one point in the third part of my session, I drew a guy who was like maybe a military general or somebody high up on the military food chain, but not like a full bird colonel or something, but somebody high up there. And he was in a building that had 5 sides, maybe the Pentagon, or that might have been just me telling myself this is military or your Department of Defense related. It's, and he was underground. That I knew for sure. And there were people watching on screens what was happening. And he had with him a scientist who was also a military guy, but had a big science background, also background in linguistics. And they seemed to be trying to decode something that involved a frequency that they felt might have been a message. So it was just fascinating.